Hey, welcome back to the Private Memoirs of a Desperate Man podcast. My name is Felix C. Arroyo. These are the thoughts of a man who's just trying to navigate this life the best way he knows how, hoping for other guys to tune in if they relate. If you wouldn't mind, take a second to like, subscribe, share this podcast wherever you're listening to this podcast. Leave me a review. Help a brother out. Today's episode, I want to talk about something that I do, and it's not as unhealthy as it used to be once upon a time, but a lot of guys, and I know this from my own experience because I've talked to guys I work with, guys I hang out with, the little amount of times I do hang out with guys. When you're shooting the breeze or shooting the shit with the fellas, there's a topic, a conversation that usually comes up. And it's the time we sit in the car after we get home from work, or maybe you're coming home from somewhere else. Typically it's work because it's the proverbial downtime driving home, sitting in the parking space in front of your house or the driveway or the garage. You kind of just sit there and you wait until you kind of, snap out of it. You kind of take a couple deep breaths. You know what you're trying to do and you don't know how to do it. And what you're trying to do is gather yourself so that you aren't this grump that's about to go into your home where your family is. And your family could be a number of things. It doesn't have to be the traditional American family, and I say that in quotes. We can talk about friends, family, we could talk about family relatives, we can talk about whoever you are coming home to, your significant other, whatever. Typically, a father goes through this a lot because there is a lot riding on him in regards to maintaining his composure, because you don't want to come off short with the family. And I'm guilty of that. And my wife and I talk a lot about how things can be perceived with one of us, unbeknownst to ourselves when we're in the moment. And I think the older I get and the more in tune, or at least the more I'm trying to get in tune with what's going on inside of my brain, and how am I decompressing in a healthy way on my way home from work so that I can step into my home and not look like I'm dragging everything still with me. Okay. The mental shift from work to home, when you got to change the roles from employee to provider or leader, or, the dad, husband, there's so many roles. And this goes for women as well. This really does, because I think women have their own way of dealing with this. I don't know if they also sit in the car. I know the cliche thing is the dad just kind of sitting in the car, like tuned out, got the lunchbox in his hand. He's about to go in. He's got his hand on the door. He's just sitting in that truck, or he's sitting in that car like, I don't know. The car, it's like this neutral zone. It's free from expectation. It's free from confrontation or performance. It's like a therapeutic space. It's a bubble of safety. It's one of the few spaces men allow themselves to be still. And that stillness, it says a lot. Now, it can be healthy and it can be unhealthy. And like I alluded to earlier, it was unhealthy for me years ago, because I kind of just vegged out in the car, and then I couldn't bring myself to unveg myself when I got home. And I think what I do now is a little bit of downtime on the way home. And then when I hit a certain particular traffic light or a particular destination in the travel home, I know it's time to kind of snap out of it. And I think this really stems back to if you're working with a lot of people or a lot of noise, or you're constantly busy and you don't have any time except for that downtime on the way home. You talk about how this is like a ritual But, it could also be a sign of deeper emotional suppression. The pause could be a survival tool, right? But what happens when it's the only tool? And that's what I'm kind of getting at here is let's talk about how it's okay to kind of take a breather in that car before you head in. But understand when you head in, you have to be present, and you don't want to rely on constantly sitting in that car. There's got to be different ways you can go about it. Now, every now and then that car is a good, safe place, but I'm talking about, there were times where I would sit in the car for 30 minutes. I mean, now this was years and years ago. I'd light up a cigarette. I'd kind of put the music. I actually would turn the music off and just kind of veg out. I quit smoking now, 10 years, going on 10 years, 11 years, 10 years in October. And when I drive home now, I'm kind of listening to some lo-fi or a lot of podcasts to get my brain thinking. And then I'm trying to snap out of whatever daydream state I'm in so that I'm present. And I'm not always good at that. I'm not. And I'm grateful I have a wife and a partner who kind of understands that and will hold my feet to the fire when it's appropriate, but also is a good landing space for me to crash out, so to speak. So, it stems to like, were there lack of outlets, for me to feel safe, and not just anybody's fault. That's more like the way my brain's wired. Do men feel safe expressing exhaustion, disappointment, or vulnerability? Not typically, but it's common for a man to find somebody where he can do that with. I mean, hopefully, right? I know I did. I know what it's like to not have that. And the reason why I keep bouncing back and forth in these episodes when I kind of mention those things, like I used to know, I don't deal with that now, I used to, blah, 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 blah. It's because I have this wonderful like contrast to go off of. It's imperative to back that up. Like I'm not just speaking from a false sense of experience. I remember my mom would come home from work. My mom was a kindergarten teacher. She's retired now. And she's retired and she's living the life. But anyway, she was a kindergarten teacher. And I remember my mom coming home and she would, I just need 20, 25 minutes. She would always say that. And she would go upstairs in her room and be alone for like 20, 25 minutes. And we knew, my sisters and I, that we were not to ask for do not bother mom unless it was an emergency. And so as I get older now, I get that, especially being a teacher. I could never be a teacher. I don't have the patience for it. God bless teachers, especially kindergarten teachers or children. Very young children can be taxing when you have so many of them in one room. Good Lord. So I can understand that. And I think for me, like, and I think for a lot of guys, the music and the drive, it just kind of puts you in a different space where you're mentally not bogged down. And it's a place where you can breathe, and it's a place where you can kind of think. And a lot of guys don't like having their thoughts played out for everyone to hear. As what I mean by that is like, that's why guys don't really like sharing too much, because it's awkward. It's the only safe place is in their head. And we could talk about why. We could talk, maybe it's, upbringing or what we've been told, or genuinely it's just how men feel. But regardless, there's a lot of different ways you can handle that. And like I mentioned before, some soft music, some podcasts, they kind of help my brain settle. A lot of guys could be dealing with, the dread of what is on the other side of that door. What are they coming home to? You could be dealing with a partner who is a stay-at-home parent, and they're dealing with a lot on their end, and they haven't had anybody to unload or talk with. You could be dealing with somebody that's also had their fair share of a tough day at work. And so you need to be emotionally available, but that you're drained. It's a paradox, and there is no right or wrong. I think it's just the way things are, and it's all about navigating it the best way you know how, with some tips and some routines and some tricks, and having grace with yourself, but also knowing that you need to pour into your partner. And that's what I'm learning. Yeah, I'm trying to be better at it, even though I know in my heart of hearts I am. I know my face and I know my attention to detail shifts. Do men seek intentional decompression, like therapy or hobbies, like an outlet? For me, it was a no. I think the podcast has become my outlet. I think the podcast has become my hobby and my therapy. And before that, you can say, like, I love cutting the grass on a good day. I do like being creative and fixing things, when my anxiety isn't in the way. But I think for the most part, I know a lot of guys that have these intentional ways of decompressing. The guys go hunting. Not just guys. I know women do too, but working throughout my life with a bunch of men predominantly, you get used to the hunting season. Guys go out on camping trips, or they go hang out with their buddies. I think that's cool. And I mentioned that in episodes back when I talked about, my inability to be more available to my friends. And so I think, like, when you have these guys that are sitting in the car and they're just kind of trying to wean themselves out of the funk, they typically don't have a hobby or an outlet where they can decompress. Isolated men typically show like a slow erosion of connection. They just kind of let go. And that's not to say that there's nothing worth their attention. It's just a inside mental thing. I would love to, in a perfect world, see the sitting in the car being more of a, let me have a woo-saw moment to myself and snap myself out of this funk for the day, as opposed to, this is the only time I get, let me sit in here and just veg out for the 30, 40, 45 minutes. And guys, I remember guys telling me, they would see their kids in the window and the kids would wave at them. They'd wave, they noticed their dad. And so now it's awkward, or the wife would be like, oh, you don't come in. What's going on? You were out there forever. What were you doing? And it becomes like this weird thing, which really, in full transparency, it's just a place where these guys are shutting down and trying to find a way to cope. And this isn't to say anything in regards to when people are dealing with depression and they go to some extremes. This is just an honest conversation about, that quietness and that stillness in the car, that safe bubble that I alluded to earlier. That's a real thing. There have been times where I broke down in the car. I can't express that enough. Even though this isn't so much about that and just guys in general chilling in the car, but there are times where, as a man and with what I was dealing with, I broke down in the car, and I'll probably have more of those in the future, especially my drive home. For me, it's the drive home with the music off. And if the weather's nice, the windows are down, and it's just kind of one with nature in a way, one with the energy and the frequency on the road. And sometimes if I'm dealing with a lot, it tends to come out. When I lost my dad, I did that a lot. So, the engine's off, but you're still running, right? And so get yourself some hobbies, get yourself some sort of passion project, get yourself some therapy maybe, find an outlet. Don't be isolated all the time. Small routines that reveal deeper emotional realities will help you deal. And I think as men, that's imperative. Again, Women can do this as well. Women probably relate to this as well. But as a man, I know my little small routines that I can knock out, it makes me feel good. But it also shows me what I may be dealing with. Because if I feel that good about it, I must have been holding something in. And so, it's kind of like a way to check in with yourself. And so I'm curious from those that are listening, fellas, the car moment. Do you have it? Do you sit in your car before you walk into your house, before you walk into work? Are you, I don't want to say guilty because there's nothing that's a negative association there. Are you like me? Are you one to find solace in the stillness of the vehicle, the car, the removal from society in that little bubble? Do you do that? And if you do, is it healthy? Do you do it too much? Are you there for long periods of time? Or do you do it just to snap out of your little funk and get ready to roll for the day wherever you are? I'm hoping that you all have loving, supporting families at home that understand what you're going through like I do. Don't take that for granted. Be grateful for it, but try to be a better person for them. And that's all I got for today. I will catch y'all on the flip side. Thank you so much for listening. Y'all be safe. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the Private Memoirs of a Desperate Man podcast. My name is Felix C. Arroyo, and I'm out. Y'all be safe. Peace.